Oh my God, wait a second.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to toss this way back there. Yeah, I forgot about that. Anyways, okay, so. Yeah, one question you used to ask me, tell me if you've ever experienced this. When things are tough, when things are really tough, things are really difficult in your family, you close the door to your room, you go to your bed, and you put that pillow over your head, you're crying. And if you're a boy, sometimes, yes, boys do cry. What's the one question you ask? I don't think I'm any different from anybody else. And I know when I was a kid, it was always a question that I asked. And the girl, I won't say her name, the first name was Sam. She broke my heart. This is when I was in the 8th grade. Yeah, 7th, 8th grade. And there's one question that we ask. What's that question? What is the question?
Why did God let this happen to me?
Well, that's a really good question. What's the question? Why?
Like you said, but like,
Go ahead, elaborate this one.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, everything happens for a reason.
It's true.
Why are you married?
No. Thanks.
Just asking.
What's the reason? No, I'm just kidding.
But like, maybe you're not meant to be with someone for a reason, or like,
That's
there's
so
someone
true.
that's waiting for.
And I totally see that. But my question was, what is the question that we all ask? It's why. Now, one of the big questions that we ask is, why am I here? How did I get here? How did I arrive in this situation? Okay? So that's the answer. That's a question that we'd like to ask, and I'd like to discuss with you today. However, I want to tell you about this guy I read about. Harrison Okeme. I think that's how you say his name, Okeme. What happened was he was a young man. He worked on a tugboat in the Atlantic Ocean. And at this part of the Atlantic Ocean, it was known for piracy. Raise your hand if you know what piracy is. What's that?
It's where like in movies where a bunch of people appears right here a ship and steal.
Okay, that's the Walt Disney version, Pirates of the Caribbean. There was no like Johnny Depp going, oh, we're going to take you. No, these are serious people. With guns, rifles, grenades, and they will take over that ship and steal whatever's on board, or they will steal the ship back. You know those big old cargo ships that have those big giant containers on them? Groups of 8 or 10 people will come along in speedboats and they'll take over those ships if they're able. Anyways, Harrison Okeme was on a tugboat, a lot smaller. Okay? He'd been married for almost 5 years, no kids yet. And his wife, and they were believers, I imagine, because his wife would send him verses that she wanted her to read from the Bible. One night, or one morning, I'll say, something happened. At about 4:30 in the morning, Harrison went to the bathroom. Now, what they had to do on this tugboat, why? Because there was a threat of pirates. They would have to lock all the doors, steel doors, iron doors, just in case pirates got on board. So he had to lock all the doors. He went to the bathroom. He locked himself into the bathroom. A small bathroom was like a cubicle. It's not very big. He was in there, and all of a sudden, something happened. And his life changed because of that. Normally I would stop here, but I'll continue. What happened? The boat capsized. Everything went black. Everything went dark. Could not see anything. He was thrown from one side of the cubicle, one side of the bathroom, to the other. Could not see anything. But he realized that the boat was upside down. That tugboat was upside down. So he felt around. He was able to find a handle to get out. Water had been rushing in. The tugboat was filled with water. So now, in the dark, he's feeling around. He knew the tugboat well enough to be able to find the captain's room. He was in the captain's room. Okay. And he saw a life vest, or he was able to see a life vest, because I guess the lights go off when there's seawater, whatever that touches down, they automatically go off. So he had some light. He had 2 lights. So now he's swimming around trying to find a place where he can stay, where there's a pocket of air. So he finds a place to stay, where there's now a pocket of air. And he doesn't see anybody else. He's in there now. There's pictures of this. If you go online, you can see there's interviews with the guy. The water's cold. And he can feel fish swimming around, trying to nibble on him. After some time, he didn't even know how many hours had passed. 3 days passed. He was submerged, capsized in that boat for 3 days. Now, what happened was, later, he started to remember the verses that his wife had told him to read the night before. It was Psalms 52 through Psalm 54 through 92. And he started remembering what he had read. The verses that the Psalms that his wife had told him to read. It comforted him. And at the time, he was thinking of the same question that we have. What question is that? Why? And he was wondering, what's going to happen to my wife? I don't have kids yet. What about my friends? What about the other guys on the tugboat? What happened to them? But he realized, sitting there in the dark, is that he could hear motion, bumping, big thumpings, the sound of bigger fish eating some of his comrades on that ship. And he wondered if he was going to be next, because he was still submerged in the water. So then, he realized he needed some sort of a weapon. Felt around, and he was able to get a hold of he found a toolbox. He was able to take out a hammer out of it, and he realized, this is what I'm going to have to use to defend myself. That's it. After 72 hours, he never gave up. He stayed there. And then he heard something. He heard the sounds of something going on in the tugboat, that capsized tugboat, and he realized there's a search party. There's a search party. They're coming. But it was dark. He couldn't really see where he was. He had an idea where he was in the tugboat, and he thought, they'll come to me, they'll find me. Well, after a while, they didn't come. And then he heard them again, and he realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go to them 72 hours later. I'm going to have to go to them, and they're never going to find me, and I'll die in here. So anyways, he left where he was, and he's feeling around in the dark, and he hears a sound, and one of the divers came to see if there were any survivors, and they were sure there weren't any. His head, the man poked his head through something, and Harrison felt around, and he touched the guy's head. The guy freaked out. What's that? And he realized, and he said, and he communicated back to the ship, he's alive! There's a survivor! After 72 hours, they rescued Harrison and Keenan. One of the things he said that kept him alive was his what? Where he said he must have prayed 100 times, communicating with the Lord, asking him why. What's he going to do? What's going to happen? What did God do? Save that. Any number of things could have gone wrong. Might not have been able to find an air pocket. What would have happened if he hadn't gone to the bathroom at 4:30 in the morning? What could have happened?
Sharks.
He could have been where the other guys were. They were a crew of 12. He would have probably dead too. Somehow, some way, some reason, he had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the bathroom, and maybe being in that cubicle was what saved him. Maybe it as the Lord would put it there. Somebody said, "You said things happen for a reason." Could very well be. So, anyways, Harrison asked, I'm sure, why. But what about us? The big question is, why are we here? How did we get here? How? Any ideas? Go ahead.
Because we all have a love and passion for God.
Okay. What do you think? Okay.
We were chosen by God to be alive.
Okay. Cool. Well, I thought that was the most good question. Anybody else, guys? You boys? What do you think? Jocelyn, why are we here?
Well, there's some pattern of help.
That's definitely true, yeah.
God sent us here to teach the rest of the world about God.
Okay. We bear His image. We are all made in the image of God. So when a child is born, where is God's image? In the world. Wherever people go, they represent God, His image. Okay? Now, I was looking at some myths, some stories on how humans were created and how the world came into order. And we're not going to have time to go over that today, unfortunately, maybe another time. But what I would like to do is let's review one more time. Let's look at the book of Romans, Romans 1, okay?
It's on your bookmark.
Yeah, the girls bookmark these. Thank you so much for doing that. When you pause, we're going to say that word. Ready? You know how I do that in class, right? Go ahead. Ready? Everybody there? Verse 20? Go ahead.
Since the creation of the world,
God's
invisible
qualities,
His eternal
power,
and divine
nature,
have been clearly seen, being
understood,
from what has been
made,
so that men are without
excuse. Thank you so much. Thanks. Now, that's interesting. So the assumption is we just say God doesn't explain, well, this is how I made every molecule. This is how I made every atom or cell, whatever the case may be. He just says, this is who I am. Now, I was reading something about Japan, about how they believe that the earth and everything came into existence. And I'll read a little bit for you. And what I'd like you to do is I want 4 kids to come up here with a marker. Come up here with a marker. Let's see here. Wait, who's got a birthday this month? July? What do you say, July?
September.
Oh, okay. Your birthday's on Halloween? Okay, go on up.
Really? Oh, wow.
You got a birthday this month? That's good. Come on up.
September.
Take a marker.
March 1st.
September.
What's your birthday?
August.
Okay.
September what? September.
Okay, I just need 2 more.
August what?
2 more kids.
I'm September.
Okay. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, wait. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a cold and blow your nose. If you vomit, let it go. Give your best friend the Kleenex, don't you? No. Okay, go ahead. Going up.
Need one more person.
Okay, one more person. Let's see here.
September.
Okay, raise your hand if you've ever eaten a frog. You've eaten a frog?
Yeah, sort of.
You ate a frog? How'd you eat a frog? I don't know why I just threw that out there. I didn't know you really ate a frog. You ate a frog?
I ate a frog there's a frog.
Right! Okay, wait.
Try
Okay.
another one. There's a frog chip thing. Mr. Ramirez, you know how they have chicken legs?
Go.
Frog legs.
Frogs wasn't
Ladies
bad.
first.
Right. Did it taste like chicken? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is this. Now, I'm gonna read about Japan, and you're gonna write words that sound like creating something. Okay, every time I say something that has to do with creating Japan, you're gonna write something. What's that? India, China.
Oh, I don't understand.
Okay, well, we're gonna just do India and China. Okay, ready? We're gonna do India. Oh, and you. No, it's too small. I'm going to do India and China. Okay, ready? Whenever I say a word that sounds like, interesting, you're going to write it. Okay, ready? I'm going to go through this fast. Ready? You're going to write it under India. So you get all next, and he's writing those bullet points already. You just love those bullet points. Under India. You're going to write it under India. Ready? In the beginning, there was absolutely... Okay, wait. First of all, creation by and from the self. In the beginning, there was absolutely nothing, and what existed was covered by death and hunger. He thought, let me have a self. And he created the mind. As he moved about in worship, water was generated. Froth formed in the water, and the froth eventually solidified to become earth. Right, big kids, so we can read this guy. Right, big. He rested on earth, and from his luminance came fire. After resting, he divided himself into 3 parts, and one is fire, one is sun, and the other one is air. Thus, in the beginning, the world was only his self, his being, or essence, which then took the shape of a person. At first he was afraid, but realizing that he was alone, of which to be afraid, his fear ceased. However, he had no happiness because he was alone, and he longed for another. He grew as large as 2 persons embracing, and caused himself to split into 2 matching parts, like 2 halves of a split pea. And from them arose husband and wife. Okay? So you have something there. Okay, don't write it under where it says Bible, because we're going to reserve that for something what's in the Bible. You ready? Now I'm going to read something about China and their belief about how things were created. You ready? Ready? This is about China. Long ago, we need to have 4 different people now. Okay, so go and give the marker to somebody. We need 4 different people.
Please, I beg you, Julia.
Okay, gotta give the marker to somebody.
No,
Gotta give the marker to somebody. Gotta give somebody the marker. If you've already been up, gotta give somebody the marker. Get up. You've been up already? No. Okay, ready?
Wait, which way you go? Wait, where are we going?
Just right over there. You can just continue. Ready? Okay, so ready. Now this is from China. Ready?
Am I ready?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, it should be under China.
We can't get over there.
Just fit it where you want, but not under where it says Bible.
You can
Ready?
put China.
Ready? Now it's okay. Nobody's gonna die this time.
Oh. You're trying to sabotage. I can know about
Ready? Now, China.
Wait. I need a new marker. What? This one? It's faded.
Do your best. Do your best.
Oh.
I got it from the Dollar Tree. Ready? China. Pangu and Nuwa. Ready?
How do you spell that?
Don't worry about it. Okay, ready? Long, long ago, when heaven and earth were still one, the entire universe was contained in an egg-shaped cloud.
Egg cloud.
All the matter of the universe swirled chaotically in that egg. Deep within the swirling matter was Pangu, a huge giant who grew in the chaos. Girls and guys keep talking, you have to hear what I'm saying. For 18,000 years, he developed and slept in the egg. Finally, one day, he awoke and stretched, and the egg broke to release the matter of the universe. The lighter, purer elements drifted upwards to make the sky and the heavens. And the heavier, impure elements settled downward to make the earth. In the midst of this new world, Pangu worried that heaven and earth might mix again. So he resolved to hold them apart, with the heavens on his head and the earth under his feet. As the 2 continued to separate, Pangu grew to hold them apart. For 18,000 years, he continued to grow until the heavens were 30,000 miles above the earth. For much longer, he continued to hold the 2 apart, fearing the return of the chaos of his youth. Finally, he realized they were stable. And soon after that, He died.
Wow.
With the immense giant's death, the earth took on a new character. His arms and legs became the four directions in the mountains. His blood became rivers, and his sweat became the rain and dew. His voice became the thunder, and his breath became the winds. His hair became the grass, and his veins became the roads and paths. His teeth and bones became the minerals and rocks, and his flesh became the soil of the fields. Up above, his left eye became the sun, and his right eye became the moon. Thus, in death as in life, Pangu made the world as it is today. You guys, I dig that. So many pictures illustrating that.
You seem so disappointed when you heard that the universe exploded.
Did I?
You're like, yeah.
Oh.
Chaotic.
Good on you. Okay, now,
I want to.
excellent. Now, let's have a seat. Guys, have a seat, please. Now, let's open up our Bibles to Genesis 1. Let's open up our Bibles to Genesis 1.
Is there a bookmark?
No, it's
Okay, I think you guys can find that.
Yeah, okay, good.
Very hard to
Ready?
It's on the second page.
Genesis 1.
In the height. Page 2, guys.
Pangu sweat. Ah.
Ew, that's really
I
nice.
know. Yeah, exactly. Blue. How does that actually? What? No, I'm going to read this. Okay, now, what we're going to do is this. Ready? Now, let's see, I need one kid to write on the board. You didn't get a chance. Go ahead and write on the board where it says Bible. And somebody else who didn't get to. Okay, go ahead. Ready? Now. Okay, where it says Bible. Go close by. Ready? Now.
Do we erase this? Or
No, leave that there. You ready? Now let's look at these accounts. Now listen to this one. In the beginning, God, okay, you'll say the word that I would say. Ready? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Let's continue. Verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was, God called the vault sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Verse 9. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." Excellent. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and he gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Verse 11. Then God said, "Let the land produce
Vegetation.
seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear with seed in according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let there be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great
Lights.
The greater light to govern the
Day.
and the lesser light to govern the
Night.
He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the
Sky.
to give light on the
Earth.
to govern the day and the
Night.
and to separate light from
Darkness.
and God saw that it was
Good.
and there was evening and there was morning. The
Fourth day.
And God said, let the water teem with living
Creatures.
and let the
Birds.
fly above the earth across the vault of the
Sky.
That's okay. So God created the great creatures of the earth and every living thing which the water teems and moves about in it, according to their
Minds.
and every winged bird according to its
Time.
And God saw that it was good.
Good.
God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the
Seas.
and let the birds increase on the
Earth.
and there was evening and there was morning the
Fifth day.
and God said, let the land produce living
Creatures.
according to their and the livestock, the creatures that move along the
Ground.
and the wild,
Animals.
each according to its
Kind.
and it was
So.
God made the wild animals according to their
Kinds.
the livestock according to their
Kinds.
and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their
Kinds.
and God saw that it was
Good. Good.
and God said, let us make mankind
Our image.
in our
Likeness.
so that they may rule over the fish and all the
Seas.
and the birds in the
Air.
over the livestock and all the wild
Creatures.
and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his what?
Image.
In the image of
God.
he created them. Male and
Female. Male.
created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and
Increase in number.
and fill the earth and
Subdue it.
rule over the fish in the
Sea.
and the birds in the
Air.
and over every living creature that moves on the
Ground.
Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit and seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for
Food.
and it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was what?
Very good.
Very good. It was very good. And it was morning.
Sixth day.
Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. Now, let's look at some of these accounts. What are some of the words that you recall from reading what we read about? The first one was about, was it India? What are some of the words you recall? Death and hunger filled everything. Right. There was froth, there was fire, there was sun, air, essence, and what was it? The self. He was alone, and then he formed one, he split together, and there was a man and a woman. Okay, as I recall when I was reading this, it seemed like this sounds like a fantasy. See, this sounds so strange. Why didn't they just come up with something that everybody can understand? I thought this is so strange. Why is it like that? Well, if that's true, it sounds more like a fiction book. Go ahead.
Well, in all honesty,
Be honest. Thank you.
someone who does not heard of faith, if they just heard that, they would be like, "What the heck is
Right. Even somebody who doesn't know the Lord would be like, man, that doesn't. I don't know. That'd make a great movie. Let's make it. Yeah, let's put that Jason. What's that guy's name? The Aquaman guy. Jason Momoa. Let's put him in it. Yeah. Okay. He'd probably be dead. Okay, so Next, then we read about, was it China?
Yeah, China.
Now, we looked at China. What are some of the things that you remember that we heard? Go ahead.
Warlock.
Okay. Yes.
Egg death.
The egg.
I like
Remember everything was in an egg-shaped what?
egg shape.
It was an egg-shaped. You gotta remember. It was in an.
egg.
It was an egg-shaped cloud. And then, do you remember what was said about the cloud?
Chaotic
Go ahead.
egg.
Okay. Well, you guys wrote here. Who wrote this? Oh, egg-shaped, slept in the egg. The egg broke and he yawned. Then heaven and earth were separated. Oh yeah, and then there was somebody, a giant that was 18,000 feet tall.
Yeah.
And then, but then he grew to 30,000 feet and he couldn't hold the sky up anymore or something like that.
That reminds me of like something.
That reminds me of the sky. Like,
Question is the Percy Jackson.
Well, what, guys, hang on, go ahead.
The question is,
Would you have cracked the egg
Interesting.
and eaten it?
Or fried it. I like my fried. Go ahead.
yeah, giant egg cutter reminds me of the Percy Jackson series because the woman has to hold up the earth because if the earth hits the ground, I mean the sky hits the ground, then everything just breaks apart.
Interesting. Go ahead.
How do they know if Pongo is a boy or girl?
You know, that's it. I like this because you're starting to ask, how do we know? Now, anything else about China? The idea of the creation of everything. Go ahead.
It was a person who didn't want perfection, so he grew and he held the heaven and the sky and he separated it from his feet, and then one day he knew that it was still, so he let it go, and then he died, and then his blood and
Yeah, right. What happened?
water.
Yeah, what ended up being? Oh, there's some other stuff that was interesting there. So I'll shoot that. Now, let's look at what God says about creation. What did he create on the first day? What did he do on the first day? Go ahead. Simple. Okay? There was a separation. It was light and darkness, and it was the what? Verse
Verse 1. Oh.
Okay. Now, what was the second thing he did? Go ahead.
Created light and darkness.
Okay. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I'm going to have you. Well, let's see. No, we only got a few minutes. Okay, let's just go over this. Okay. First day. Okay, let's see. I'm going to read this to you. Now, on the first day, you created light and called it day. You called it darkness. What?
Night.
Is that pretty simple?
Yeah.
Did you hear anything about like a cloud-shaped egg?
Death walks
18,000.
upon you.
Yeah.
Walking
Death
upon
and
Death
death.
walking-
It's a
yeah.
death and darkness
Okay,
and hunger.
let's
because
continue.
bad.
Jason
Day
Momoa.
2, he created the sea and the sky. God separated the water and put some above the earth. This had the effect of creating the perfect environment for living things. On day 3, he created a fertile earth. God separated the land from the sea. Okay? He separated